Each one is going to take a few minutes to talk about their area, challenges and opportunities. And Susan, why don't you start off?
Thank you, Ashton, and on behalf of we in the panel, thank you all for being here today. As Ashton said, I come from the business environment. I'm a technology entrepreneur by training, but do a lot of work in education, both with systems and large-scale institutions, but actually in schools and with students. And I was in one of our schools, not this past May, but before then, one of our area high schools. And it was far from the richest school in the Central Texas region, but it was not the poorest school either. And went into the library and was talking to a young man who was part of that class that was graduating. And we got out the yearbook and looked at the yearbook. And the senior class was a nice looking group of kids in cap and gown, all dressed up and smiling, of course. Counted through, and there were 157 students in that graduating class. And I thought, that doesn't sound very big for a school as big as this. And so he and I went and pulled the same yearbook of that class 4 years before when they were freshmen. There were 314 students in the freshman class, exactly double the number of students who had their picture taken as seniors. And I said, well, so what's happened to them? Are all of them graduating? Because, of course, one of the things that hasn't changed about high schools, just like when you and I were there, is they actually dress you up in your cap and gown in the beginning of the year, so they have all year to produce the yearbook. He said, no, actually, 2 of the young women in my class got pregnant this year, and they dropped out because they were caring for their babies. There were 9 of us who were the primary wage earners for our family, holding down full-time jobs or more than one full-time jobs, and they couldn't do that and stay in school at the same time. There were 6 of my buddies that just said, what am I here for? This is, I don't know what Algebra 2 has to do with my life. I don't see how this has any relevance. There were 5 kids who had been challenged with math and science the whole time they had been in high school and just decided, I'm never going to make it. There were another 19 that still hadn't passed the tax test, and so we didn't know whether they were going to graduate or not. Bottom line is, of those 314 freshmen, 120 walked across the stage with him and got a diploma. Now, that's not necessarily typical of every school around the Central Texas region, but I can tell you that we've looked, and if you take all of Central Texas, the number of freshmen 4 years ago who could have walked across the stage last May to get a diploma and didn't was 7,000 students. 7,000 students in the Central Texas region alone. What does that mean to the rest of us? I mean, hopefully those aren't our nephew or our niece or our child or someone that we know. But what does it mean to us anyway? I'll tell you what it means. It means $425 million every year in lost earnings to Central Texas region. I'm always wowed and amazed when I go down and see and able to enjoy the Long Center for the Performing Arts. That's such a great asset for our community. When you look at that great asset and say, we could buy 5 of these every single year. We could buy 5 Long Centers for the cost of that 1 year's worth of dropouts and their lost earnings for this community. That really is quite amazing to me. And the interesting thing is, it's not that our schools are going through this tragic time. It's not that there was this magic, wonderful experience that we had in the 50s or the 60s, or pick whenever you were in high school and it was so much better. That's not the case. It really, if you look at the statistics, if you look for most groups on most outcomes, whether that's college going or standardized test scores or whatever it is that you want to look at, our schools here in this region and in fact across the country are getting better and better, bit by bit. That's not the problem. The problem is if you look at where the skills requirements are, where the job needs are in a global economy. When we were graduating, certainly when our parents were graduating, it was okay to just have a high school diploma, or maybe not even that. Today, that's not the case. Today, 90% of the fastest growing jobs require some post-secondary education, not just a high school diploma, but post-secondary education. And 2/3 of the new jobs created require at least a baccalaureate degree. So what's happening is, while our schools and our students are getting better bit by bit, the world around us is changing so fast that we're rapidly losing ground to everyone we compete against in the global economy, and our students either have high skills opportunities in the world or they're grounded in minimum wage for the rest of their lives. It's one or the other. So we look at this, and we, as a Central Texas region, said, we can't keep doing things the way we've always done them. There are great, wonderful things going on in our communities. We have charter schools and dropout recovery programs and mentoring programs and after school. may be wonderful, great, but if they're not scaling to meet the need, and if in many cases they're competing with one another for funding and actually conflicting with one another, how is it that we get our hands around this really strategically? How is it that we can bring together what we're doing in a common framework with common metrics so that we can all work together and really change this picture? And we spent 2.5 years pulling together all of the research. What does the data tell us? Where are achievement gaps closing or not? Where are things getting better or not? And talking to people in our communities across from Hutto to San Marcos to Round Rock and Central Austin and Westlake and all across our communities. And we took that and we said, let's bring people together and create a blueprint. Let's create a blueprint for educational change. How can we do this differently? That blueprint has 4 strategic priorities. The first is that students enter kindergarten school ready. What does it mean to be ready for school? There are thousands of students across the Central Texas region. My best friend is a kindergarten teacher. She will tell you every single year students walk into her class who have never held a crayon, who have never held a book, who don't know a single letter, who don't know a single number, who don't know a single color. And we're asking them to read on grade level by grade 3, and we're asking them to graduate and go on to higher education. And our schools, understandably, are really struggling with this. How is it as a community that we look back at those earliest years, at those support systems for parents, at the home visitation? What do we do in the 0 to 3 to 4 years to get those students ready to start school and be ready to have the kind of grounding they need to be successful from a social emotional standpoint, from reading numeracy? So that's the first goal. The second goal is that we eliminate achievement gaps between all groups, whether those are ethnic groups, low income, high income, and we really have to concentrate on the middle school years. What you see is that most of our students do pretty well in elementary school. They're, you know, they're cuddly, and it's, you have a homeroom teacher, and it's a supportive environment, and most of our students do really well. When they hit middle school, we built the model of middle schools to sort kids into assembly lines. That's what we built it for, and it's still pretty much a depersonalized factory environment. And what you see is that our student achievement starts to tank. In fact, by 8th grade, while achievement gaps are closing a little bit, we still have 25 percentage point differences in math outcomes in 8th grade. And adult and parental involvement just goes way down, because those of us who have middle schoolers, it's kind of scary. They kind of, you know, their hormone changes and it's a different environment and lockers and class to class. That's where they need us most. Is if you're interested in volunteering, think about those middle school years, because that's where our schools and our students really need us. The third goal is that all students don't just graduate, but they graduate college and career ready and prepared for a lifetime of learning. Do they have the skills, academic and otherwise, to be successful, whether that's in military or whether that's an associate degree from ACC or whether they're going to go to Harvard or, I hope Princeton, not Harvard, or wherever they want to go to succeed? Do they graduate with the skills that they need to be successful in the kinds of careers that are open to us in today's economy? And the last, the fundamental, we call it the foundational goal, is that Central Texas as a community is responsible for the success of every student. Think about that for a minute. It's not just about the accountability of a principal or the accountability of a school. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for Wells Fargo? What does it mean for my church? What does it mean for the city of Austin? For all of us to be accountable for the success of every student. Because until we change the culture of this region such that we all see that our future depends not on my kids, but on all of our kids, then that's when we'll really start to make the fundamental changes. So the Blueprint for Educational Change provides that wraparound set of goals, partners, metrics, involvement, where we can start to really strategically align everything that we're doing. A last thing before I pass this on is there are a lot of you who are already involved, and bless you and thank you for doing that. And there are a lot of you who may want to be involved, and there are different ways you can do that. But you know the easiest thing you can do? The easiest thing you can do through your congregations, through personally, through your family, is a very consistent message. Is we want every student in this region and every family to understand the link that they themselves have between education and economic prosperity. Because it means the economic future for all of us, but it means personally something to them, and it's very simple. 1, 2, 3. Everybody can count to 3, right? You got that far. First, graduate high school. It's worth $1 million in earnings over the course of your career. Second, graduate college. It's worth another $1 million in earnings. Third, speak 2 languages, and you have more opportunity and better pay. Graduate high school, it's worth $1 million. Graduate college, it's worth $2 million. Speak 2 languages, you have more opportunity and better pay. If every student knows that, they'll understand how they can start to turn around this cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.